right, so you've bought all of your watercolor supplies and you're good to go forever, right? Well, not exactly. One of the things I love about watercolor is that it is so economical. You can invest in a small selection of affordable watercolor supplies and they're going to last a really long time, especially your paint. Because watercolor paints can be re-wet on the palette, there's very little waste and you can use it over and over again. That said, there actually are a few watercolor supplies you might find you need to replace pretty often. Number one is paper. I think it goes without saying that if you're painting a lot, you're going to use up a lot of paper, and that is 100% a good thing. Think of your paper as your number one investment. Buy a lot of it. You'll feel empowered to just paint more often, and you won't have a scarcity mindset about this particular supply. Some of the papers I keep purchasing over and over again are my Fabriano Artistico watercolor blocks. I prefer the cold press surface. It's a really nice in-between texture. It's not too rough, it's not too smooth, and I really like this 9 by 12 inch size. I also love the 5 by 7 inch blocks. I use these all the time. And the Arch paper, of course, is amazing. Again, I usually buy cold pressed. These square blocks are a fun size. I like all three of these because they fit easily on my scanner. So if I want to digitize my art or sell prints, I can just scan it and get a really high quality print from that. Remember too that sizing will go bad on the paper if you're not using it. So don't let it just sit in your closet for years and years. Use that paper and keep buying more and keep painting more. Number two is bleed-proof white. So if, like me, you like to use an opaque white paint for little details at the end, like for example, whiskers or little highlights that you maybe weren't able to paint around, I like to use bleed-proof white. This is a product by Dr. P.H. Martins, and it's my favorite. I like it so much better than gouache or white gel pens or any other product that I've tried. But the downside is, let me show you, this is probably my second or third bottle. It does get kind of goopy and it dries out. One way that you can kind of extend the life of this product is that you can actually stir it to revive it again. But you can see I haven't used mine for a really long time, so I have some good paint at the bottom, but for the most part, it's pretty dried out. So I think it's time for me to replace this one, unfortunately. That said, it's not super expensive, and if you consider it an investment that you have to buy maybe every 6 months, well worth it. By the way, if you're just getting started with watercolor, I have an awesome free watercolor jumpstart guide. There's a link for that in the description below. It gives you all kinds of fun projects to get started with watercolor and learn the basics like wet on wet, wet on dry, and so much more. It's a 20-page ebook, absolutely free. Go ahead and download that in the link in the description below. The third product I find that I have to replace pretty often is masking fluid. Just like the bleed-proof white, this tends to dry out. If you're opening and closing it, using it pretty often, it's a liquid latex. It's literally designed to dry in the paper and protect that white area so you can paint easily over it. So it dries really quickly and it dries like plastic. So here's an example. This bottle I've had for a while, and you can see it kind of gets goopy in the top right there. Just like with your white paint, you can stir it with the end of a brush to get it nice and smooth again for you to use. But again, this is one of those supplies you're probably going to need to replace often, especially if you don't use it all that often and it just sits on your desk. The fourth thing is your favorite paint colors. I don't go through a lot of tubes of paint, and I paint almost every single day, so that's saying a lot. Watercolor paints last a really long time. However, I have burned through quite a few tubes of Daniel Smith Ultramarine Blue, Burnt Sienna, and Indigo, and my Holbein Turquoise Blue and Yellow Ochre. You can see I need to replace these tubes pretty soon. If you have favorite colors that you just use over and over again, you're gonna need to replace them, but that's okay. That just means you're painting a lot and you're making a lot of artwork, which is awesome. The last thing you might need to replace that you maybe didn't think you'd need to is your favorite brush or brushes. My favorite brushes are my silver black velvet round brushes. And these are still in pretty good condition. I still use them every single day. I take good care of them. I wash them with water and let them dry flat so that you don't have paint and water just seeping down. If you store them upright while they're still wet, that can cause some problems at the ferrule. So if you take good care of these, they'll last quite a few years. However, if you're kind of hard on your brushes like I am, I do a splayed effect where I spread out the bristles of the brush and paint fur and dry brush texture using that technique. You might find that your brushes start to lose their nice fine point, and that might be a signal that it's time to replace it. Most of your everyday items like your water jars, your palette, your spray bottles, all of those will last a lifetime if you take good care of them. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching today, and I'll see you in the next video.